I never liked parties. Bright lights, loud music, the kind of small talk that dries your throat and leaves you nodding like an idiot because you don't know what else to say. My friends always told me I needed to get out more. But to me, nothing beat the quiet hum of a computer screen at 2 in the morning, fixing bugs no one else could figure out. That night, I let myself get talked into showing up. Sean, my best friend since high school, said I needed to stop hiding in my apartment. You're gonna turn into one of those guys who dies in front of his keyboard and isn't found for a week, he joked. I knew he was only half kidding. So, against my better instincts, I put on a button-down shirt that still had the fold lines from the store and drove over. The house was already buzzing when I got there. Music thumped against the windows, laughter rolled out onto the porch, and strangers clustered in groups like they'd known each other forever. I stood in the doorway longer than I should have, taking it all in, telling myself to breathe. My plan was simple. Stick close to the snack table, maybe nurse a drink, and disappear before anyone noticed me. That's where she found me. She came in like she owned the place, which, judging by the way people gravitated toward her, maybe she did. Lana Brooks. Blonde hair, perfect curls that caught the light every time she moved. Her laugh was the kind that made heads turn. Not forced, not polite, but big and confident. Like she'd never been embarrassed a day in her life. She commanded attention without even trying, and I remember thinking she looked like someone from a world I had no business being in. She caught me standing there with a paper plate of chips, pretending to check my phone. You look like you're about to make a run for it, she said, her eyes locking on mine. Just strategizing my exit, I admitted, half smiling. That made her laugh again. A genuine, delighted sound that made the back of my neck warm. Good. Honesty. Most people fake it at these things. I hate fake news. Something in me relaxed. Maybe it was the way she leaned against the table like we'd known each other longer than 30 seconds, or the way her voice cut through the noise around us without shouting. For once, I didn't feel like background furniture. So what do you do, strategist? She asked, tilting her head. IT. Troubleshooting, mostly. Servers, networks, software. The boring stuff. Boring to you, maybe, she said. But you're the guy keeping the world running while the rest of us pretend to know how to restart a router. I laughed, and it wasn't forced. Felt easy. The banter rolled on. She asked about my favorite games, movies, even food. She wasn't just filling silence. She was listening, asking follow-ups, leaning in like my answers mattered. That alone was new territory for me. At one point, she snagged a cookie from my plate and said, "You know, you're not as invisible as you think. I noticed you the second I walked in." That line hit me harder than it should have. Nobody noticed me at parties. Not like that. When I finally admitted I was terrible with phone numbers. Truth was, I was terrible at asking for them. She smirked, took my phone, and typed hers in. "Now you don't have an excuse," she said, handing it back. The rest of the night blurred. I don't remember the songs that played or half the people who stopped by to chat with her. What I remember is how she kept me anchored there, like I was worth her time. By the time I left, there was a number in my phone that wasn't spam, and a feeling in my chest that maybe, for once, I'd been seen. Driving home, the city lights flashing past my windshield, I let myself imagine a future I'd never dared picture before. I didn't know it then, but that night was the start of everything. Our first date, moving in together, the marriage I thought would last forever. Back then, it felt like destiny. 1 year later, I barely recognized the version of myself in the mirror. The guy who used to avoid parties, who preferred empty apartments and the quiet hum of a server room, was now unpacking boxes with a woman who filled every corner with energy. Lana had that effect. She didn't just walk into a room, she claimed it. Our first date had turned into a second, then a third, until my apartment felt more like her place than mine. By the time we officially moved in together, it wasn't even a question anymore. It was just the next step in a story that seemed to be writing itself. My parents adored her. That was the part one never expected. My mother, who never found anyone good enough, gushed about her constantly. "She's such a spark, Nate," she'd say, pulling me aside after dinner. "You finally have someone who balances you out." My father, who spent most of my life hidden behind newspapers and the sound of sports games, actually opened up to her. I'd watch him lean forward at the table, telling her stories I'd never even heard before. He'd nod at her the way he used to nod at me when I fixed something around the house. Approval, silent but unmistakable. It was the same with Sean. He and I had been friends since high school, bonded over late-night gaming marathons and bad pizza. If anyone was going to be skeptical of Lana, I thought it would be him. But no, he slid into her orbit like it was the most natural thing in the world. They joked easily, shared playlists, even debated movies in a way that felt like siblings more than strangers. At first, I saw it as a blessing. My best friend and my girlfriend clicking meant no awkward balancing act, no choosing between spending time with her or him. We could all be together, and life felt smoother because of it. When I finally decided to propose, Sean was the one I asked to come with me to pick out the ring. We stood under the bright lights of a jewelry store, and he laughed at my hesitation. "Quit overthinking it, man. You've got the girl, you've got the job, now get the ring. She's already yours." I listened. We chose a modest diamond in a simple setting, nothing flashy, nothing gaudy, just something that looked like her. I practiced my proposal speech in front of the mirror, nervous enough to feel like I was back in high school, then scrapped the whole thing the second I got down on one knee in the park where we'd first kissed. She cried, of course. Happy tears, falling fast as she said yes. I slipped the ring on her finger, and for the first time in my life, I felt like everything was in place. The wedding was small but perfect. My parents beamed. Sean gave a toast that made everyone laugh, and Lana looked at me like I was the only man in the world. I held on to that look like a lifeline, convinced it meant forever. Married life at first was exactly what I thought it would be. Saturday mornings in pajamas, brunches that lasted into the afternoon, movie nights where she fell asleep against my shoulder. We talked about kids, about maybe moving to a bigger house one day, but for now we were content. I was so sure I had done everything right. I'd found a woman who brought me out of my shell, who charmed my parents, who made my best friend part of our family. Every box checked, every approval won. It never crossed my mind that when everyone approves, it's easy to stop questioning. Looking back, I can see the cracks already forming, small but steady, like hairline fractures in glass. But at the time, I was too busy smiling, too busy believing that this was the life I'd waited for. And so I ignored the one truth that should have been obvious. When something feels too perfect, you'd better start asking why. The first year of marriage rolled by like a well-oiled routine. Work, home, weekends with friends. Nothing felt out of place until Lana quit her job at the boutique. "I just don't feel it anymore," she said one morning over coffee, stretching like a cat in sunlight. "I need to find my passion, Nate. Life's too short to waste on something that doesn't inspire me." She smiled when she said it, like she was announcing a promotion rather than unemployment. I swallowed my concern, told her I understood, and figured she'd land on her feet. Lana always did. But days turned into weeks, then months. While I was grinding through 10-hour shifts at the office, troubleshooting server crashes, taking emergency calls in the middle of the night, she was exploring options. Yoga classes, craft fairs, a half-baked idea for an online store that never got past the logo stage. I wanted to believe she just needed time. I told myself I was being supportive, the good husband who let his wife chase dreams instead of pressuring her. That's when Sean started showing up more. At first, it seemed harmless. He'd stop by to drop off tools or grab a beer while I was still at work. Lana would text me, "Sean fixed the sink today," or "Sean hung that shelf we talked about." I told myself it was fine. He was my best friend. He knew his way around a toolbox better than I ever would. And honestly, it saved me time. But then it became a pattern. Sean was there on Tuesdays when my shift ran late. Thursdays when I had back-to-back calls. Saturdays when I'd planned to take Lana out but got stuck debugging a system failure. Sometimes I'd come home and find his truck parked out front. Lana would say, "Oh, he just left," or "He helped me move some boxes." Always casual, always with that bright smile. Still, something about it unsettled me. It wasn't one big thing, it was the little things that stuck. The way her phone lit up with his name more often than mine. The way she'd glance at the screen and grin before typing back quickly, tilting the phone away. The way she started saying, "Sean thinks we should," more often than, "What do you think, Nate?" One night, after another 14-hour shift, I came home to find them laughing in the kitchen. Sean leaned against the counter, beer in hand, while Lana stirred pasta on the stove. They looked so at ease, like they'd done it 100 times before. "Hey man," Sean said, lifting his beer toward me. "Dinner's almost ready." Dinner, in my kitchen, cooked with my wife, while I was at work paying for all of it. I forced a smile, hung up my jacket, and sat down. We ate together like it was nothing, but the back of my neck burned the whole time. Later that night, lying in bed, I told myself I was overthinking. Sean was my friend. Lana was my wife. If they got along, wasn't that supposed to be a good thing? But unease doesn't need proof, it feeds on silence. And in the silence of those late nights, I felt it growing. I wanted to believe I had built a life that couldn't be shaken. I wanted to believe that loyalty meant something. Instead, all I had was a gnawing feeling in my gut I couldn't shake. The cracks were there, even if I pretended not to see them. Suspicion is a funny thing. It doesn't hit you all at once. Creeps, it collects. A glance here, a pause there. By the time you realize it's heavy enough to crush you, it's already settled on your shoulders. It started with the texts. I wasn't snooping, not really. Her phone lit up on the counter while she was in the shower, Sean's name glowing bright. Just a quick ping, a half-second preview of words I wasn't supposed to see. "Can't wait to tell you later." Tell you what? When she came back into the room, towel around her hair, I tried to sound casual. "Sean texted." "Oh," she said, swiping the message away before I could read more. "Just an inside joke." "What's the joke?" She smirked, shaking her head. "You wouldn't get it. It was meant to sound playful, but it landed like a punch." That's when I decided on game night. If they had nothing to hide, then there shouldn't be a problem with all of us sitting down together. Cards, beers, laughter. The way things used to be before my gut started twisting. But Lana balked at the idea. "Really? A game night?" she said, her tone too sharp for such a small suggestion. "Sean's busy. And honestly, you never liked those anyway." Which was true. I didn't. But that wasn't the point. Eventually, she gave in, though not happily. Sean showed up late, claiming he'd been stuck at work. When he walked in, Lana lit up like he'd been gone for months. Their energy filled the room in a way I wasn't part of. We played cards. At first, everything seemed normal, but then the little things started to pile up. I'd ask Sean a question about his new project, and before he could open his mouth, Lana would jump in with the answer. I'd crack a joke, and Sean's laugh would land a half-beat after hers, as if he were following her lead. They exchanged glances, quick, sharp, like sparks snapping in the air, that cut me out of the circuit entirely. At one point, I caught her finishing his sentence before he even said the last word. They laughed like it was charming. To me, it sounded like two people rehearsed in a language I wasn't invited to speak. The game ended early. Sean claimed he had to get up early. Lana walked him to the door, lingering longer than necessary. I sat at the table alone, shuffling the cards into neat, angry piles. When she came back, I really tried to keep my voice level. "Something going on I should know about?" Her eyes narrowed, offended before I even finished the question. "What are you talking about?" "You and Sean. The texts. The looks." She scoffed, crossing her arms. "Paranoid much? He's your best friend, Nate. He's been around since forever. Don't make it weird." "I'm not making it weird," I said, though I could even hear the edge in my voice. "Yes, you are," she shot back. "God, I can't believe you'd even suggest." She stopped herself, shaking her head like she was disappointed in me. "You know what? I'm not having this conversation." She walked out of the room, leaving me staring at the empty chair where she'd been. I sat there a long time, the cards still spread across the table. My gut told me I was right. My brain told me I had nothing solid. All I knew for sure was that the line between paranoia and proof was getting thinner by the day. And sooner or later, I was going to cross it. The night she left her phone on the counter, I almost didn't touch it. Almost. She'd gone to bed early, claiming another headache. I was cleaning up the kitchen when the screen lit up. Sean's name. The preview said, "Same time, same place?" My chest tightened. I stood there staring at the glow, the sound of the dishwasher filling the silence. I told myself not to swipe, not to dig. But curiosity isn't what drove me, it was survival. I needed to know if the shadows in my gut were real. The phone unlocked easier than I expected. Her passcode was the same as our Wi-Fi password. The messages were all there. Weeks worth. Can't wait. Last time was incredible. The hotel was perfect. Little love notes wrapped in casual shorthand, threaded between fake excuses about errands or gym sessions. I scrolled until my hands shook. Locations pinned. Room numbers mentioned. Sean's name tied to hotel reservations. It felt like being punched in the stomach over and over. Each new message another blow I couldn't block. But I didn't yell. I didn't throw the phone. Instead, I sat down at the table and opened my laptop. If she thought I'd roll over, she'd forgotten who she married. The location history on her phone painted a map: Tuesday evenings, Thursday nights, weekends I'd been stuck in the office. Every pin dropped at the same hotel downtown. I searched my email archives, bank statements, anything to prove what my eyes already knew. Then I checked the hotel's booking site. My fingers moved fast, the way they did when I was debugging code. I searched past reservations under Sean Mitchell. The dates lined up perfectly. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. I sat back in my chair, cold and steady. No more paranoia. No more guessing. The next night, when she told me she was heading to yoga, I followed. Her car turned left instead of right, straight toward the hotel. I parked 2 blocks away, my hands gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles ached. 30 minutes later, I saw them. Sean and Lana, arm in arm, laughing as they walked out of the sliding doors like a couple on vacation. She wore the dress I'd bought her last Christmas. The one she told me was too formal for date nights. They didn't see me. For a second, I thought about stepping out, about making a scene right there in the street. But the anger that burned in my chest wasn't the kind that lashes out. It was the kind that settles in, slow and dangerous. I waited until they passed, then pulled away. When I got home, the house felt different. Smaller, colder. She came back hours later, her perfume too strong, her smile too bright. She kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong. But something was wrong. Everything was wrong. I didn't ask where she'd been. I didn't tell her what I'd seen, because I didn't need her lies anymore. I had the truth, and the truth was enough to end everything. Filing for divorce wasn't hard. The paperwork was clean, straightforward, no kids, no shared house, just joint accounts to untangle. Cold lines on paper to match the cold I carried inside me. What I didn't expect was my parents. I thought when I told them, they'd be furious on my behalf. I thought my mother would comfort me. My father would grit his jaw and say something about loyalty and respect. Instead, they looked at me like I was the one who'd broken the vow. "Sweetheart, she was lonely," my mother said, her voice dripping with sympathy. "For her, not me. You've been working so many hours, and Lana, well, she needed someone to talk to. Someone to talk to." That's how she described months of hotel rooms. My father leaned back in his chair, folding his hands like a judge. "Marriage isn't easy, Nate. Sometimes people make mistakes. Forgiveness is the stronger path." I stared at them, trying to recognize the people I grew up with. But all I saw were 2 strangers defending the woman who had gutted me. It only got worse. The next week, I stopped by their house unannounced. I should have known better. I should have stayed away. There they were, Lana and Sean, sitting comfortably in my parents' living room like they'd belonged there all along. My mother poured Lana tea. My father laughed at something Sean said. It looked like a family portrait, except I was the ghost standing in the doorway. Lana glanced at me, her eyes wide with mock surprise. Sean just smirked, leaning back on the couch, his arms stretched casually along the cushions like he owned the place. You don't have to be here if it's uncomfortable, Sean said, his tone smooth, smug. I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth hurt. Uncomfortable? Watching my wife and my best friend cozy up with my parents? Yeah, you could say that. Sean's smirk deepened. We were meant to be, Nate. Since college, really. You know it. Everyone knows it. I turned to my parents, waiting for them to shut him down, to tell him he'd crossed a line. But they didn't. My mother just sighed, setting her teacup down gently. My father rubbed his chin, as if considering Sean's words. That was the moment it hit me. Not just that I'd lost my wife and my best friend, but that my blood had chosen them over me. I left without another word. Not because I was weak, but because my anger wasn't ready to be spent. Some battles you don't fight in living rooms. Some battles you save for when you can make the other side bleed where it hurts. Walking out of my parents' house, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. If Lana, Sean, and even my own family wanted to stand together against me, then fine. I'd burn down the ground they stood on. I'd taken punches before. Life has a way of throwing them, but never from every angle at once. Wife, best friend, parents. It was like standing in a ring where every face I trusted turned into someone swinging at me. But I wasn't about to go down bleeding. The first thing I cut off was the money. My parents had grown used to quiet support. Help with their mortgage, medical bills, the little extras they never admitted they couldn't afford on their own. I'd never bragged about it, never even mentioned it. It was just what you did for your family. But the family had made their choice. So the next time my mother called asking if I could cover their utilities, just until your father's bonus comes through, I told her the well was dry. I'm not your safety net anymore, I said flatly. She sputtered, tried to guilt me, but I hung up. Then I turned my attention to Sean. Sean always had a way of skating through life. Big talk, bigger charm, but underneath, his finances were as shaky as his loyalty. He worked at a mid-level sales job, the kind that lived and died on reputation. And lucky for me, reputation is fragile. I still had copies of things he'd bragged about over beers, tax shortcuts that were really just fraud, shady expense reports, deals that bent company policy. He thought I wasn't listening, but I'd always been the quiet guy, the one who noticed details no one else did. A few anonymous emails later, Sean's boss had a stack of evidence that couldn't be ignored. Within a month, Sean was out on the street. No job, no income, no safety net. Lana tried to hold it together. For a while, I heard through the grapevine that she was putting on a brave face, playing the victim card, saying I'd ruined them out of spite. But without my income, without Sean's paycheck, without my parents funneling them support anymore, their shine dulled fast. I didn't need to see it up close to know what was happening. The arguments started. The fights escalated. Neighbors whispered. Police reports followed. The night it all came to a head, I wasn't there, but I heard enough. Sean's temper boiled over, and what started as shouting turned into shattered glass and bruises. When the cops came, Lana was bleeding, and Sean was hauled off in cuffs. The woman who once lit up every room was now a headline buried in the local blotter. Domestic dispute leaves woman hospitalized, man arrested. When I read it, I didn't smile. I didn't laugh. I just sat back, calm in a way I hadn't felt in months. Because it wasn't about revenge for revenge's sake. It was about balance. And balance had been restored. By the time the dust settled, my phone had gone quiet. No more texts from Lana. No smug calls from Sean. Just silence. Then one evening, my mother's number lit up the screen. I almost didn't answer, but habit won out. Nate, she said, voice trembling. It's your father. He's sick. We need your help. For a second, my chest tightened. Despite everything, he was still my father. What's going on? I asked. She hesitated, then sighed. It's Lana. The hospital bills are piling up. Sean can't cover anything from jail. We thought maybe you could. I didn't let her finish. You lied, I said coldly. You used Dad as bait to get me on the phone. Her tone sharpened. She's family, Nate, whether you like it or not. She needs you. I laughed once, bitter and sharp. She stopped being my family the second she walked into that hotel with Sean. She made mistakes, my mother pleaded. But she loves you. Deep down, she always will. Stop. My voice cut through hers like a blade. She loved what I provided. She loved that I paid the bills, that I kept the lights on, that I made her look good in front of people. But me? No. She loved the reflection, not the man. Silence stretched across the line. I could hear her breathing, could picture her sitting at the kitchen table where I'd eaten 1,000 dinners, still refusing to see me for who I was. You're punishing us, she whispered finally. Your own parents. Over her. No, I said. I'm punishing myself if I keep letting you use me as a crutch while you take her side. You chose her. You chose Sean. You can live with that. My father's voice came faintly in the background, asking who was on the line. My mother didn't answer him. I ended the call. That was the last time I spoke to either of them. When the phone rang again 2 days later, I let it go to voicemail. When the emails came, I deleted them. When the letters showed up, I threw them away unopened. Because there's a moment when anger burns out and clarity takes its place. And my clarity was simple. If blood can turn against you once, it can do it again. So I stopped carrying them. All of them. I didn't leave with fireworks or a grand announcement. No dramatic exit. No burning bridges in public. One morning, I just packed what I owned, shut the door behind me, and drove out of the city. The skyline shrank in the rear view, and with it, every face that had betrayed me. Lana with her fake smiles, Sean with his smirks, my parents with their blind loyalty to everyone but me. Each mile on the highway felt like another chain falling away. I settled in a small town 2 states over. A place where nobody knew my story, where my name wasn't whispered in grocery store aisles. I rented a modest house, fixed it up with my own hands, and for the first time in years, the silence around me felt like peace instead of punishment. At work, I kept my head down, did what I'd always done best, solve problems other people couldn't. My coworkers respected me for it, nothing more, nothing less. No politics, no games, just skill. Slowly, I built a new circle. Guys from the shop invited me out for beers. Neighbors asked me to lend a hand with repairs. I wasn't Lana's husband or Sean's friend anymore. I was just Nate. And then there was her. I met her at the hardware store of all places. No fireworks, no instant sparks, just a simple conversation over which drill bit worked best. She was kind, grounded, and she laughed at my dry humor without making me feel like a punchline. We started meeting for coffee, then dinners. No games, no hidden texts, no walls, just presence. For the first time, I realized love didn't have to be a stage show. Could be quiet, steady, honest. Looking back, people might say my story was a tragedy. Wife gone, best friend gone, family gone. But I don't see it that way. It was liberation. Because sometimes losing everything isn't the end. Sometimes it's the start of the life you should have been living all along. I don't carry them anymore. Not Lana, not Sean, not even my parents. Their weight was never mine to bear. Now, when I wake up in the morning, the air feels lighter. The world feels mine again. And for the first time in a long time, I'm not surviving betrayal. I'm living free.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.